When I was a very young girl, my grandmother would tell me the story over and over again. How many of you have grandmas that tell you the same story over and over again? Yeah. But anyway, my grandmother did tell this story over and over again. And I used to ask her, why was she telling me this story? So the story is that my grandmother's grandmother was the property of the white family that owned my family during slavery. My grandmother's grandmother was also the daughter of the plantation owner who owned my grandmother's grandmother, her mother, and her grandmother. I told you a lot of grandmas. The white mother who was married to my grandmother's grandmother's father did not like this little girl very much. But that was okay. She was told to just stay out of her way, to do her work, and to be a good girl. Unbeknownst to any of the family, including her mom and her grandmother and the white man and woman, no one knew that my grandmother's grandmother had been secretly taught how to read and write by her half siblings, the white children. My grandmother's grandmother was specifically the property of her little half sister, who was 3 years old. Can you imagine someone 3 years old owning anybody? Can you imagine anybody owning anybody? None of us should own people. But this little girl, my grandmother's grandmother, belonged to the 3-year-old. It was my grandmother's grandmother's responsibility to always be with this little girl, wherever she was. It was her responsibility every day to make sure that her little half sister was taken care of, was clean, was properly clothed, and most importantly, that she had a playmate. So wherever the child went, my grandmother's grandmother was always there. Remember, no one knew that she could read and write. So one day, my grandmother's grandmother is in a room where the white mother, who really believed in education for her children, was teaching her child, all of them, a lesson. She called on one of her children. That child forgot the correct answer. But they all knew that my grandmother's grandmother knew because, one, she was the oldest. She was 9 years old. And two, they knew that she always knew the answers. So my grandmother's grandmother blurted the correct answer out. And what do you think? Was that a good thing that this enslaved child knew how to read? Anybody? Fifth graders, sixth graders? Are there sixth graders there? I don't know if there's sixth graders here. So I don't know if you've done North Carolina history yet, or if you've even talked about American history and American slavery. But it was against the law for any enslaved man, woman, or child to know how to read or write. So on this day, it was discovered that my grandmother's grandmother could read and write. On that day, this child was punished pretty severely, and she was thrown out of the house that she slept in with the 3-year-old. And she was banished. She was told not to ever come into the house again. The white mother had always wanted to sell this child, but her husband would never allow it. But now her dream was coming true. On the morning that my grandmother's grandmother was going away on an old wooden wagon to a new plantation, my grandmother's grandmother's mother was running behind the wagon, screaming that they not take her child away. While she was running, my grandmother's grandmother picked up this nail, an old rusty nail that fell from the bottom of the wagon that was taking her child away. She picked up the nail, she put it in her pocket, and she kept it. So remember when I asked you if you kept anything special? Well, guess who has the nail? Who has the nail? Where do you think that nail is? I see those hands. So I have the nail. I have that nail because my grandmother's grandmother's mother was able later on in years to buy her daughter back out of slavery. So with her came the nail. That nail has been passed down on the matrilineal side of our family, which is the mother side of your family. That nail has been passed down, and I now have that nail. I believe that what we keep keeps us. So those special things that you have that you're keeping, I want you to think about the stories that they have. So every time I look at my nail, every time I pick it up, and I keep it in a very special secret place, but every time I visit with my nail, I'm reminded of the strength that that nail is carrying. I'm reminded of the bravery of all the women who've carried that nail before me. So as a young person, I never wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be an oceanographer specifically. I'm obsessed with oceanography. But it was my grandmother who told me, daughter, you should tell the story. You should be a writer. You must be the one to tell the stories, to write the stories that need to be shared. So that's why I became a writer. So I could keep these stories and share these stories and encourage young people like you to also write your stories. So you all have stories. And I'm going to offer you an opportunity as an exercise, an assignment, a homework assignment. I want you to go home and I want you to write about what it is that you keep. What is special to you? Why is it special to you? And why is it keeping you? But here's the trick. I don't want you to write about it. I want you to allow that object to write about you. So if it's your teddy bear that you've had since you came home from the hospital, the teddy bear is going to tell us all about you. So that's my assignment. That's my Black History message to you, to remember that everything that we keep in our family, the photographs, the hand-me-down recipes, the letters, all of those things are very, very important because they are part of our human museum. So think of yourselves as human museums holding all of these stories. And you are not too young to think about what's in your human museum. What's special to you? What are you keeping? So thank you again. And I look forward to celebrating with you again, maybe. But have a wonderful Black History Month, what remains of it. Thank you very much.